With an election year, political science experts say there is a psychological reason for why political signs can be influential. One factor is called the exposure effect. UMD professor John Blanchard says that seeing a candidate's name repeatedly makes them more familiar to you. Additionally, he said a prevalence of one sign or another may create a social cue to an undecided voter and suggests which name has more support. He adds people often follow trends and want to feel a sense of belonging. Now, for those of you who have political signs in your neighborhoods, in Duluth, in your property, election signs must come down 10 days after the general election.